Ooh. So now we're going to walk up Avenida de Gaudi, away from the cathedral, to see another Gaudi site, and then up to Guell Park, G-U-E-L-L, Gaudi-dominated park. Cathedral, and this very pretty tree-lined walkway with a couple of narrow side streets on either side of it, and then a sidewalk for the shops. And me being the hypocrite, stopped in a pastry shop and bought this lovely chocolatey thing. The cutest little plug and a rug tricycle you've ever seen. I'm guessing that just beyond this beautiful street light, of which this entire walkway is ensconced, is the hospital down there. Interesting, mainly because of the technique and the subject matter, whatever it is. It's an interesting flying thing with its wings and its hair piece, which may be just a continuation of its back. This looks like the pose of a dancer, except that there must be something else or someone else on top of her, because there are several extra hands in there. It's a beautiful building, particularly for a hospital. I mean, these guys know how to live, right? Looks like there's no access to this, so we'll have to get what we can from here. You can see that's Gaudi-like, but not Gaudi. The architect here is Luis Montaner, also the name of a well-known Mexican singer. Doors swung open, and I'll take advantage of it. A little bit of close-up look at the windows. And notice up on top the stained glass windows up there. And then the finials are ceramic. Here's some more of this hospital with this nice mosaic, somewhat a la Portugal. And there's still another on that outbuilding, for lack of a better term. And notice those finials up on top. We'll get a closer look. On my tiptoe, I can just make out the dome in there and some other Gaudi-like finials. Walk up to the park, and I understand from talking to some folks in the States earlier today, it's on a hill, so I'm guessing it's way up there. And people here, when I ask directions, kind of ooh and ah about the fact, or about the fact that that's a long walk. So we'll find out. And I'm just winging it by asking people how to get there. My way up this hill towards Park Guell, and there a beautiful little building. I mean, with the applique that's on it, including that set of balcony cones, if you will, with the Gaudi finials on top. After a pretty good hike, we are at the entrance of Park Guell, the Gaudi Park. I don't know what we're waiting in line for, but it's something. But here's a little bit of detail that's interesting. It looks like they put that ball inside of that enclosure there, but it can't just roll out. I'm not sure how it can come out. Maybe it could come out if you lift it up and pull it out there, but it would be too heavy to do that. Apparently the park's divided into two parts. One, the monumental zone, which I paid to get into here, and then the rest of the park. So, and I don't know what we're waiting in line. The colors, which are, if I do it this way, believe it or not, and there's the same scene. Here's this parabolic alcove, if you will, with a window.
Interesting doorway set with the juncture of a perpendicular wall, also allowing for a window. Another parabolic window space. Very pretty, actually. Video of early Barcelona. That might be Columbus' statue there. Edifice up on the hill. This may be the overall view. Playful Gaudi room. Tile wall with bulging and concave and convex tiles both. Tiles are beautiful. They're very pretty and novel railing. If Disney had designed this, no one would be slightly surprised to see it. Hippostyle. It's reminiscent of what you see in Egypt. I mean, what I'm supposed to see in Egypt when I get there, and you can see Egypt. But notice how some of the columns tip inward. In fact, all of them seem to tip inward, and you wonder if that's not some allusion to the optical illusion that might have been created in the Egyptian analog in order to make it look like it was perpendicular to each other. It's the outer ones apparently that are tipped. Whether that was for some kind of engineering reason or because he thought it was cool, who knows. I forget what you call it. Maybe it is a hip of some or other. When you've got a whole pile of these pillars because they had no real good technology for spanning considerable distances, although the Romans did. Here's the stalactite look. Here on this banister, the classical allusion to the gargoyles, but with the typical Gaudi interesting railings. Here it's interesting how he has sloped these pillars and sloped the whole design of this hallway. These little cavities, did he intend that flowers would be planted there? It would make some kind of sense. And look at the difference between that detail and here, where it appears not to be finished, but in part it is, maybe. The benches are very sculptured, pretty look. There's those little knobs in the back. I wonder what they're for and sitting on. But notice he's built in the backrest device. I can't remember the name of it now. And these are pieces of tile, broken pieces of tile, mixed in collage form. You get different feelings from it, like you do from that different sides of the cathedral stained glass. And those little knobs you sit on, but they don't affect your sitting, they don't prevent it. You can see how all this would translate into a style of furniture, if you will. But here the banister also serves as a gutter on the outside for those gargoyle types. Where it has that horizontal line, and then this was just free form right to the border. Okay, that's the tower for the cable car, so I'm guessing that Columbus's statue is right down in here somewhere. We exit up those stairs to leave this monumental area and go into the rest of the park. And then I'll kind of walk back to my hostel. It should be a pretty good hump to go see that. We get a pan of a whole section of this. I have no idea what this structure is, so we'll go up and take a look at it. It looks like a Gaudi version of an aqueduct. At best, you wonder if the tree is an original part, and if it's actually a tree. Looks like more of the same. Looks like something out of some fantasy epic. So this planet has cactus. As far as I legally can go. Up the hill. So now we go down. And there is Sagrada Familia. And there's where I'll be tomorrow climbing. This is where people can sit. Notice how they're sloped back to make them. So as soon as I get through here, I'll start walking through the city in that direction, keeping whatever I can see, but that Mount Montjuic, or whatever it is over there, as a view. But when you're walking the city, you really can't see much. You can kind of get the sun once in a while, and that's what I'll work. Here I've run into one of the original old 19th century markets. I don't know how much of it, if any of it's open. This is a beautiful building with these corner balconies with stained glass. This is a plaque probably for notating people in a business. And what it has is the name of this insignia for individual trades. For example, there you can see the carpenter in the upper left-hand corner. And the fork and yeah, I'm working my way up to the top. Presumably a castle's up there. We have to go through this park first. And here's the cable car terminus, or at least this terminus. This is the one that goes across the bay in front of Columbus's statue. Here at the top is what might be a pretty water feature if it were maintained a little bit better, like water flowed through it so it stayed reasonably clean. This mountain not only has great historical precedent and value, but it's from here that much of the major buildings, including the cathedral, got its resource stone. So we're just exiting this garden with its collection of feral cats. And I'm guessing that my climb this morning ends up there on that ridge line somewhere. One of man's most loved devices and inventions. Here we approach the front of the castle with its drawbridge. I think it's faux. Not sure there ever was one here, but very pretty gardens down below. Well, it looks like it could have been a moat. How they would have filled it is an interesting question. I'll shut my mouth. Here's the mechanism for the drawbridge. Now here's a well. Looks relatively new. I'm always fascinated by how you can be on top of a mountain and have a well and wonder how deep does it go. Okay, up on the ramparts now you can see the cement bases for the wheels that allowed the cannon to swing right and left. Okay, I'm looking pretty much to the southeast from the top here at the castle. Recognize that big building there, and also the green, there's that big park we were in that used to be what's called the Citadel. Notice how it's not too far from the ocean, because when the Bourbons finally won in 1714, they ordered the razing of all the neighborhoods over there, 17% of the population, so they could build a castle and a citadel to fortify and establish this area under their control. Eventually all that was ripped out and it was converted into a park for one of the international exhibitions. And there, of course, in the dead center is Sagrada Familia, and to its left and beyond us a bit is the most elegant part of Barcelona. And then somewhere up in there, and I think it's about in the center, we won't be able to see it, I don't imagine, but I think right in there somewhere along the tree line should be Park Güell, that Gaudi park. And I'll quickly complete the sweep, in essence, to the northwest. It's an interesting building there that's flashing with the light. And then we'll go over on this side of the castle and see what vantage it has. I think the Americans, including probably our president, should come to these countries and study their history, where they've had dictatorships, and realize the horrendous price they paid, not in the loss of liberties alone, but in the literal physical atrocities, the assassinations, the death squads, the torture, beatings, repression on a daily basis. Now it's just apparently a shell of a building, probably being slowly converted for some kind of administrative purpose. Again, like most fortresses, or many at least, there are different levels that can be fortified if the attackers get that far, and you can back up to subsequent inner rings of fortification. Probably a quest, a symbol of the quest for freedom. Very American looking. Generally, west will pan across the huge industrial and shipping complex that Barcelona represents on the Mediterranean. Here I'm at the northwest corner, correction, northeast. I'll just pan around so we can see the rest of it. There's the marina that I walked through, and the Ramblas Mar. Here the view through the trees of the marina down there, and the cruise ship. And then here through the trees, and we'll telephoto to Sagrada Familia. It's interesting to realize that the tallest tower is not yet built. I'm guessing that that's the Olympic Stadium and other stadium next to it on the right, and that blinking thingy is a symbol and facsimile of the torch. Looks like an antenna on a spaceship. It's interesting how we build these huge buildings for the Olympics, and then it seems like, from what I read, the cities then and countries spend a great deal of effort in the future at trying to find some way to justify their continued use. A painted sidewalk, and they can't even justify doing that. Interesting Gaudi looking building with its irregular surface flowing in different directions, it seems. What's probably most interesting is why this was taken over as a museum from a church. I have no idea. It's interesting, probably more dramatic from down below, so we'll go down below. Beautiful site for this museum. This reminds me with the sound more than the look, but also the look a little bit of the Wazoo Falls, part of it. More like it would have been a castle. I wonder what the history is. Very dramatic entry, if you will, to the Museum of Art. It had to be something other than a museum of art originally, I would think. Rick probably had. Okay, it's Friday night at about 9 o'clock. I'm an hour early, of course, for most people. This place will jam up, I assume, even more. I'm at Catalunya Square, the main square in Barcelona. And my main goal is, this is like the big night to walk. Friday night, Sunday night, Saturday night, I mean. Now notice these guys here. They have their hands on the ropes for their stuff, and they're all vigilantly waiting for the police to come. But if they do, they'll scatter like birds. The other group that's busy tonight, working hard, or will be, are the pickpockets. This is the main place and the main time for pickpockets. So I leave my iPod at home, money's in the socks, money belts around my waist inside my pants. Strolling in exactly the opposite direction of the Las Ramblas, which is behind me on the other side of the square. So I wanted to take a look at what's supposed to be the very expensive area up here, and it's La Example. Looks like example, the word example. Here are the lovely fountains that look pretty even in the daytime. Back down towards the Apple store, which is down there on the right, and beyond it, Catalunya. So many intersections are pretty, even in the daytime, but here, this goes on endlessly. Beginning of the gauntlet, quite quiet right now. Notice this man's ready to go in a second, so it's only a question of time before they're going to get past him.
A door strategy for security as well as airflow. As you can see, we are at the Twin Towers again, and there's the Cathedral. This is Placa Nova. I come here kind of because down there is Anthony Gaudi's Market, I think. I mean, the architectural place that has his name on it. I want to go. Now, if we're seeing it in the daytime, the top of the roof is colored, multicolored. And notice the Sagrada Familia style of pillar. Another view of Gaudi's playfulness. Fascinating that an architect could leave such an indelible impression on not only the people here but in the world. I don't remember exactly what this square is, but I know I've been through it. Oh, street art performance for these folks. Loveliest because every little square has its restaurant, and every little square somehow looks more inviting at night than any other time, particularly when you're sitting right next to a nicely lit church. You find yourself coming back to Las Ramblas. What's interesting when I stop to think about it is how millions of people all over the world at any one moment, we all have our own little individual agenda for the next few minutes. It's amazing, isn't it, when you think about it? Ants don't have that. They look like they do, but I don't think they do. They act very, very predictably. They all have the same, well, each type of ant within the same species has the same agenda, the same role, the same responsibility. Ramblas into Gaudi's Square. That's not what it's called, it just is. This is the one that used to be a monastery until it was shut down and converted probably into a market or something, and then a square. This market, of course, has been made over with lovely glass separations. Another shot of this open space. Placa, just to orientate, Placa Catalunya is down at the bottom on the right hand side. And directly up above it is where we're at now, is La Concepción Market. And where I want to go now is I want to navigate over to what I think is a market I quickly passed coming back from La Guell Park, and that's up in the upper left-hand corner, just labeled Market. And here we're inside this large space. It's a basement. And there's this little bridge over that to the main first floor. Appliances, grocery store there, and up there. Most of this should be. On the outside, it looks like, on the outside of the center, it looks like the meat. And then over here, vegetables. All the prep work that goes into it. Here at this main entrance, all flowers and plants. Notice these two side buildings. Looks like they were built in the same style. They probably just were another way to get a couple of more arcades of shops into this market.
Even alongside the building, it's very pretty. Just some interesting old buildings. This government building is interesting and different in the sense that it's got the cement work, if you will, in the form of art up there, but also it's a painted building, unless those are not frescoes, mosaics. Ah, they're mosaics, I think. Yeah. So that's very nicely done. And I think it's the first building I've seen done like this. I may have seen something like this in Portugal. But isn't that pretty? At first I thought it was that painted technique, but this is much better than that. Not sure what this building is, if it's a famous building or not, but it certainly looks like Gaudi, with two things. Number one, the sinuous, free-flowing form of the facade, and then the massive, and again, Art Deco, if you will, wrought iron work. What's interesting is to see how the building was apparently formed. Like each one would have had to have been, now there's probably a form for those two, those four, if you will. And here's the front door. Again, nothing symmetrical about it at all. I poked the camera inside. I think this may be Casa Batlló. I'm pretty sure this must be the place. Now imagine, if you can, if this styling that he has done had actually caught on and persisted over time through great building periods when much of the architecture would be like this, but it's not. It quickly reverted back to a very Germanistic, simple, straight, harsh, severe style. And then probably at some point morphing into the modernistic that we have in the glass cubes and rectangular solids. Just imagine what it took for a craftsman to work iron in this fashion, whimsically, but also complex curves, both as to surfaces and those ribbon pieces, all of which must have been relatively novel, certainly in this profundity. We'll have to go look that one up. And then directly behind me, another architect and an owner had the courage to try this approach to a facade. Even the towers on top, I don't know what their function is, are whimsical and very different, each of them. Almost demanding to be either painted or broken tile surfaced like some of his other works. And look at this, a mini double tower. Here we have still another vantage point for a, looks like a four-sided sphinx-like representation. But these are along the side of the street I first walked up. Batman. You have to know the symbols to recognize where Batman has secretly been and resides on occasion. But anyway, this is a light post, but one of the most dramatic I've ever seen. It's a double light post. It's a pretty window because of the very beautifully painted wagon wheels. Notice there are 3 of them. The bottom one cut in half, and then this other half put vertically behind on the left. Okay, just to orientate, Casa Mila is behind me on the right a couple of blocks. We're right where it says Avenida Diagonal, and right above the upper left from where it says Diagonal Metro. We're right there, and we're proceeding from towards the northwest on Gracia up to this mark. And when you get tempted to scoot across the street on a red, which we all do when we think it's safe, this warns you people die. Barcelona may be one of the prettiest cities to live in that's not French. And I'm just being deferential to Paris without remembering precisely what it was like. Here's another example of where they're doing some considerable retrofit of this beautiful street, because it has all these trees. It has the center grassed area, and then the left and right lanes on either side of it. Usual is underneath, see? Everything in this tile that I'm walking on, replacing the old tile, but it may be more extensive than that also. This is the access into this parking area. Now this paint-on style just seems to me to be a tacky affectation, themed by the beautiful balcony and the exquisite stained glass enclosed balconies on the last 2 floors. A pretty balcony with a beautiful light standard, double light. That's how they pick up the trash from those underground places. They just suck it out of the bottom. Here we are at another market. I think this is the one. It doesn't look as ratty from this side as it did from the other side, which is really too bad. So we'll go look at the other side. Here are 3 meat markets, and maybe a fish market in there too. Yeah, absolutely right across the little alley from this big market that sells exactly the same kind of stuff. But it illustrates something I think is important, and that is if you think you're good, if you think you can out-quality the competition, then you will. It's clearly not the one I found earlier, and there's no way I'm going to find it either. Just another one of the great markets that they have. Of course, we duplicate this kind of thing with our Albertsons and Safeways, except you don't have a multiplicity of similar shops within the same store. You just got a multiplicity of giant stores nearby. We get a little sense of the original architecture, and my guess is they just totally refurbished the walls. I think what's impressive is that owners of these buildings, the people who built them, I mean, had the moxie, the class, to spend the money to make something outstanding, or at least to try. Some massive and interesting doors with that heavy metal work there, befitting this building. Called the Street of Discord, and in part it's because there are 3 buildings here, one of them by Gaudi. This is the first one, that's Casa Batlló, and there are 3 such houses, each with apparently radically different architecture.
going to skip going in here because I just looked on Amazon and I can buy a book on this very building for $13 and some odd cents, and the cost of getting in here is 20 euros, almost $25. The building next door to it is interesting also. You want to say that it's got an Arabic influence, but I can't really see in the detail that it is. I don't know if this is the third building, but it certainly is over the top Baroque Art Deco. Excuse my layman's mixing of terms. There is some pretty design element in that cupola, whatever you want to call it, and we'll see if we can poke inside. Yes. Very pretty on the inside, isn't it? Another view of that building from far up the same street.